want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV. Do you want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today, where you can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Hello and welcome to the Voice of American Africans United. We are so excited to be here today. And my host, Yvette Yaboa, and my co-host,
The Invisible Man.
and we are just so excited. This is Women's History Month. It's all about us today, ladies. All about us. And one of the things I want to say, it should be about us every day. But I'm really, really excited because we always honor those who have passed on, and we do need to honor and remember our historical figures. But we have stars amongst us, and we need to start honoring those women and men who are living today for all their accomplishments that they've made and the strides and doors they've opened for others like us. So I'm gonna, as you know, what our show, and I want to tell my guests, thank you so much for always coming on. I just found out from our producer last week that we are one of the number one shows on this station. So we are really excited about that. So I want to thank you again to all my viewers and listeners. Remember, this is a live show, so you'll be able to call in. You also can follow us on Facebook and share and like and share as we're watching the show. But I want to thank you all out there so much for joining us every Friday, 7 o'clock. Sometimes we have a little different stuff going on, but I have my loyal followers, and I want to thank you so much. But we are so excited today to have two young, beautiful young ladies who are stars in sports, athletics. And so we're going to first show you a video quickly about one. Then I'm going to introduce my guest. And remember, you can call in at 7:15. The number will come up on your screen. You can call in. This is an open line. But we also have our set of questions we like to ask these young women and how they've gotten to be where they are and being such inspirations to other young ladies. So, producer, can you please show the clipping?
I started playing soccer when I was 5 years old. I started playing because I was breaking stuff around my parents' house, and recreational soccer started the next week, and they entered me, and that's how I got going. When I grew up, women's soccer wasn't visible, at least from a professional standpoint. I grew up with role models, and I always wanted to be Ronnie Lott and Jackie Joyner-Kersee. Those were my two role models. I got to participate as an analyst in the 2015 World Cup in Canada. My fingers were crossed over the last 3-4 years of doing the work and getting better at my craft. But when Fox called me and said they wanted me to participate again, I was just ecstatic. I love the fact that I am a San Jose native and that I get to cover the San Jose earthquakes and that I get to live here and be here and share in this community. This is the community where I grew up, where I learned to play soccer, and now I'm glad that I get to come full circle and still get to participate in it. I've had the chance to chat with Crystal Dunn. She plays left back for the U.S. Women's National Team, and that's a position that I played. I really enjoy watching her, and I think if she plays well in this tournament, that's going to be a huge piece for the United States.
The FIFA Women's World Cup on KTVU Fox 2.
Thank you. We always play a little video to set the stage. We have two young ladies today, though, but we're going to first introduce and bring to you Danielle, the one you just saw the wonderful video to. And Danielle, I want to just tell you a little about Danielle. Oh, and there's my beautiful little Deanna. Oh, yes, it's so beautiful. And thank you so much again for joining us today. So let me tell you a little about Danielle. Danielle played collegiate soccer at Santa Clara University, where she led the Broncos to the NCAA championship in 2001. Now, wait a minute. You look so much younger than that. You look so young. 2001, my goodness. Then she went into as a professional career where she was the number one all-over draft pick for the Women's USA, WUSA, the first professional women's soccer league in the United States. Danielle is a former U.S. women's national team player who won a silver medal at the 2000 Olympic Games. and a bronze at the Women's World Cup in 2003. She currently works at Santa Clara University and is also a television soccer analyst. She has called games in the Women's Soccer Cup, the Olympics, Major League in Soccer, and the NCAA. Danielle, thank you so much and welcome to our show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Then I'm going to introduce my other wonderful little young one over there. I'm going to tell you, you do not look that old. Is it Cameron? What? You guys look great.
Well, we're excited to be here, and thanks so much for having us. You already read my bio, so you know everything about me. But yeah, I'm from San Jose. I grew up with this gal right here. We were running around playing all sorts of sports. I think we'll get into that a little bit more, but happy to be here, happy to share our stories, because I think really athletics and sport has played a big role in our success as youth, but also as we've progressed on into our careers. I think sport is a part of both of our lives, even as adults. So happy to share that story.
Thank you so much. And this is a great way to really celebrate Women's History Month, Californians. And that Women's History Month started in California. So this is we're like, to see a full circle around the circle. Now, I did have another video I wanted to play for Deanna, but she said no, so I'm not going to show it. But this young lady, oh my gosh, she has the most unbelievable legs. Unbelievable legs. And I say that because she is a track star. And she wouldn't let me play the video, so I said, okay, but if you want to see Deanna Slayton in action, just pull her up, Deanna Slayton, and when you see those legs, oh, you will you will die for them. I honestly, I honestly die for her legs. I said, if I can chop off my body and have your legs, let's do it. But let me tell you a little about Deanna. Deanna went on. Does it feel good? Like, can you show? I wish you would throw one up real quick. I know they're out there. Okay, well, I guess not. Okay, I guess. Well, wonderful. Let me tell you a little about Deanna. And these two young ladies are sisters. And can you believe two stars coming from the same family? What genes they have? Deanna went on to complete as a 400 hurdler at UC Berkeley in California. Now, see, people say UC Berkeley because it's Berkeley College out here. So that's why I have to be very clear. UC Berkeley, California, not the music school. The school in California, everyone. She competed in both the NCAA championships and the 2004 Olympic trials. While at UC Berkeley in 2002, Deanna was the Pac-12 runner in the 400 hurdles and still holds the record as the second fastest 400 women's hurdler in California's history. She is currently a middle school PE teacher, peer advocate. Also, she's an entrepreneur, everyone. She started her own business. Track and field coach. And as I was saying, she started her own business and she now starts called Play Youth Association. It's a nonprofit sports camp that aims to develop social emotional skills through sports. I want to welcome both you young ladies. And, I'll tell you, I played sports when I was young. I tried soccer. I got kicked in the shin and I stopped. I ran track. I did the hurdles. And I hit a few of them, fell over, and quit. So I'm here, and I just honor both of you. I wish I would have kept on. But first, so Deanna, tell me a little about yourself.
I live in Oakland, California now. I'm like you said, middle school teacher. Absolutely love what I do. Love giving back to my community in different ways. And just as my sister said, happy to be here and talk about something that's kind of helped us, guided us, shaped us into who we are today. So thanks for having us.
Thank you both for being on the show. And so I'm going to just dive right in. Since this is Women's History Month, with respect to that, what give some of your first thoughts about Women's History Month, and just tell us, how do you feel about it, and why should we be honored?
I think it's amazing just to kind of bring awareness I think when I think of Women's History Month, I first think of Black History Month, because that was, stuff that we learned about growing up. And there's kind of two sides of the argument where people will say, I want, or it's great because it brings awareness, it starts conversations and things like that. And then on the other side, people are like, yeah, but we need to make sure that we're doing this, all throughout the year. And so I am glad to have Women's History Month because I think it starts a lot of conversations. As a teacher, so much of what I do is about planting seeds and getting people excited. And so if we bring awareness during this month, then the hope is that, this excitement and this new knowledge and education will carry out throughout the year. So that's kind of my appreciation for Women's History Month.
I just like the fact that we are, as Deanna said, bringing so much awareness, and you can go on Twitter, or you can go on social media, you can hear it in so many different ways and platforms, learning about the success, the impact that women have had throughout history and continue to have today. So it's fun to be a part of it and continually learn about what women are doing all around the world.
Now, you now are both of you are part of history.
Thanks.
Oh,
Dr.
of course. I'm not sure. I want to veer off a bit. Now, remember those Kellogg boxes,
Mm-hmm.
the cereal boxes, and you were on one. I had one when my daughter was little. I had a box, and I didn't want to open it. When they came out with the box with Danielle Slayton on it, I did not want to touch those cornflakes. But eventually, something else got to it as we moved along. But you remember you were on the Kellogg box, so both of you are part of history. So do remember that. So tell me, Deanna, what are some of your earliest experiences and your memories in sports?
I have to say my earliest experience was actually soccer. We started at the same time. So I was 3 to 4 years old. Danielle was 5 years old. And I liked being outside. I liked running around. I liked being active. But my parents will tell the story about how I didn't do much to start. Like I would stand in the middle of the field and pick flowers, like during games, like would make like the little wreaths and stuff like that. And my grandfather, Grandpa Frank, called and said, hey, to my parents and said, hey, I want to come watch Deanna play. And Mom was like, I don't know if you want to do that. She doesn't really do too much. And Grandpa came anyway, and I don't know. I just saw my grandpa and was out there and just wanted to impress him. And apparently I scored 3 goals that day. And after every goal would run up and jump in my grandpa's arms and then run back on the field and do it again. And so from that moment on, I think I just took a true liking and appreciation as best as a 3 or 4 year old can to sport. And that just propelled me into everything that I did from there on out. That was my first memory of sport, so to speak.
Well, that's a good memory to have. Deanna or Danielle, do you have a memory? Not Deanna. Let's put on Danielle. Yes.
I have a lot of memories of sport. I don't know that my story is that great, but I just remember like going to practice at the end of the day. So it was usually, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I always remembered how excited I was. I didn't care where I was going. I didn't care if I was going to track practice or soccer practice. We were both fortunate in that we played quite a few different sports growing up. And so it was just a fun time. It was a very social thing for me. It was a fun time to be around other kids and to get your energy out. And it wasn't serious. It wasn't competitive. It was just about joy and fun. And I sometimes have to tap back into that as an adult and remind myself, like, I can go work out just for fun. It doesn't have to be for any other reason than just to feel good and to have fun. And so I think those were my first earliest memories of sport, and having coaches and parents around me who just made it fun is something that was so important. And I think part of the reason why we stuck with it or why I stuck with it for as long as I did.
Nice. I wish I can say I like to do exercise just for fun. I think it's kind of too late for me. but I'm gonna try. So
Never too.
never too late? Okay,
Nope.
great. After this, I'm gonna go and work out on all my equipment that has now become my clothesline. So, but that's another story. Now, tell me, what makes soccer and track so exciting to you both? So for Danielle, what makes soccer so exciting for you, and Deanna, what makes it so exciting?
For soccer, one of the many things I love about soccer is that it's such a player's game. There's no timeouts, there's no referee, or there's no coach, calling plays from the sideline like you hear in football. There is no set plays like you see in basketball. Soccer is truly a player's game, and you work all week in training to prepare, but when you get out there, you have to adapt. You have to work with your team. You have to solve problems. And I think it's a beautiful art to me, the way that teams can work in synergy and can, ultimately find a way to put the ball in the back of the net and win a game. But I love that when there's 90 minutes of soccer, it's about the players finding a way to get it done. And I liked being a part of that. What about Petra?
Well, it's funny because you said art, and I think there's nothing more beautiful than running form, like quality running form. And for people who maybe haven't experienced like watching it, think about somebody like on a dance floor, and when you see somebody with like the smoothest dance moves, you're just like mesmerized. And I feel like I get that when I watch, just quality track and field. But for me personally, track is just amazing. I get excited because I think for me, like, because I did track and soccer, and I loved that I could be part of a team. And as you get older, you're even earning points for your team and stuff like that. But I would train with my team, I would travel with my team. But I also loved that when I got to the start line, it was just me. And so everything that I put into my training, as far as my physical preparation, my mental preparation, like it all came down to me when that starting gun went off. And so even though I got to have all of the social aspect of being part of a team, having people to cheer for, having people cheer me on, all of those things, I loved that I could work so hard and it would transfer over to my performance on the track. And I didn't have to necessarily rely on other people for that. It was about me when I was out there, and just that solitude was kind of nice sometimes.
Nice. I really wish I would have stuck with some sports. I went to the books, and so that became my love of life through books. And I'm paying for it body wise now because you both look phenomenal. So can you guys describe to me as a collegiate athlete, tell me some of your experiences, and also how has that prepared you for a life beyond sports?
I would say the obvious things about kind of like learning time management, just being a hard worker, understanding that what you put into things is what you're going to get out oftentimes. As far as college, I loved traveling, and I loved being able to go to places all over the US. And even as I visit places now or watch sporting events on TV, like, ooh, I ran there, or ooh, I've been there, or I met people from there, and stuff like that. So that was always nice. But I think like some of the biggest things that I learned, like you couldn't ever tell me that I couldn't keep up. Even like stories about me being younger and falling over stuff, trying to like chase after this one, just because I always wanted to keep pushing. My Uncle Kenneth will tell stories about like even high school track. I would always race the boys, even when I was younger, all the way until now. I remember racing somebody when I went camping like a couple years ago. It didn't end well. That's for another time. But I would just always, like, you couldn't tell me that I couldn't keep up. And even if I couldn't, like, I was going to be right there. Like you couldn't have a bad day without me being right there behind you. And I feel like I see that come up in the work that I do, with the lesson plans that I make or the ways that I go up and beyond for my students or within my community and things like that. I don't back away from many challenges. I think about them. I make my pros and cons list, and I definitely am smart about it. But I will dive into a lot of things because I know what it feels like to not be successful. And I also know what it feels like to push through. And so I see that come up a lot in adulthood for me.
I would say I had a ton of fantastic experiences playing college soccer. I got to win a national championship my senior year, but I'll never forget the semifinal game. So we're in the Final Four. We're playing against University of Florida, and there's a woman on the team who went on to have an extremely successful professional career. Abby Wambach scored a few goals for the United States in her time, and we're playing against her team. And we were up 2-0 with less than 10 minutes left to go in the game. And we give up one goal in about the 83rd minute, and then we give up another goal like 3 minutes later. And Santa Clara at the time was a school that had made it to the Final Four 7 times previously in our history and had never won a single semifinal game. So we always got to that point and then, found a way to lose in the semifinals. And it felt like in that moment, after being up 2-0 and then giving up 2 goals late in the game, that this was going to be another chapter in that book. And I'll never forget it. I remember going to pick the ball up out of the back of the net. And we had a bunch of freshmen on our team that year. In fact, half of our starters were freshmen that year. And I remember calling the team together and kind of like having this conversation with myself and then trying to exude this confidence to my teammates, much of whom were younger than I was and were looking to me for leadership. And they said, well, they didn't say anything. They were kind of looking at me wide-eyed. And I said, you know what? We're fine. We've outplayed this team for 83 minutes. They got lucky for 3 minutes. And now we just got to go finish the job. And I remember all of the leadership, all of the coins I had put in the bank. I cashed them all in that moment. I cashed every single one of them. And we went on to win that game and ultimately win a national championship a few days later. And I think about moments like that where I had the opportunity to develop leadership. I had the opportunity to hone my communication skills. I had the chance to be able to know what it's like to try to succeed at something and then have to pick yourself back up because you made a mistake and then figure out how to persevere. And all of those things are things that I use regularly in my life today. It doesn't matter that I can kick a soccer ball anymore. It doesn't matter that, I can do X, Y, Z on the field. But what matters is a lot of these transferable skills that you learn as an athlete. And you don't know that you're learning them, but it's the perfect environment for young people to be able to practice these skills that we are going to require them to have as adults. And so I feel really grateful for sport being able to give that to me. And I use those skills daily in my work, in my personal life, and when I'm out in the world, particularly in times like this, when you're faced with challenges that have to deal with racial injustice and deal with COVID and all the stuff that we've faced over the last 12 months. I rely on those skills constantly.
Thank you. And Danielle, I want to ask you also, how was it to play in the Olympics and the World Cup? Can you? How was that?
It's an honor. It's amazing. I think in the moment you do your best to just make it normal and to make it like any other game. The game of soccer is still 120 yards by 80 yards. There's still 22 players on the field and a ball and 2 goals. And so in the moment, you're trying to normalize it as much as possible so your emotions don't overtake you and you can actually execute what it is that you're supposed to do. But with time and a little bit of distance, it's an honor to represent your country and to have the U.S. soccer crest on your chest and to have your name on the back is really, really special. Even to this day, I know there's all this crazy controversy over the national anthem, but the national anthem is maybe my favorite song because of the meaning and the emotion it evokes in terms of knowing that I had the responsibility to represent 330 million other people in an Olympic event or in a World Cup event. And so there's a lot of meaning to that for me. And I will always look upon those times very fondly, even though they were tiring and exhausting and stressful and all those things. I'm very, very proud of what I was able to accomplish.
I'm proud too of her.
Oh, so am I. I mean, just, you're such an inspiration. And so I was like, but just like, it's interesting how we have been cut off from the world now. And so I'm going to go back to Deanna, being a teacher, because I feel like we're all teachers and a coach. What are some important things you want to say to kids about sports? And how can you encourage other young ladies?
I would say try to do as many things as you can. My sister dabbled in a few more sports than I did growing up, but just having experience and trying so many different things will help you to kind of figure out what it is that you really like to do and you're passionate about. Just the fact that she and I grew up in the same household, same parents, went through a similar upbringing. We both chose two different things, and our parents were great to allow us that opportunity to choose and to experience a lot of things. And I say I also teach physical education. And I noticed that when people are exposed to more things, then they're more willing to try it. And so don't be afraid if your friends are like, hey, let's go try this, or let's go do this, or somebody throws a ball at you, like pick it up, try to throw it back, try to do some different things and figure out what you like. I also encourage people to make things as social as possible, just like Danielle said, with one of her earliest memories, is it's scary sometimes to go out and to not only try out for a team, but to put yourself out there in those kind of spaces. But it feels a lot more comfortable when you're doing it with somebody that you know. So I would strongly encourage people to do things with friends, to try to get people in your community, in your family, to get out there with you. For us with track, it was a family affair. Every practice, every meet, we'd get my Aunt Karen and Uncle Elmer, and all of my cousins in Sacramento, and all the family in Oakland, and all of us in San Jose, and we'd come together every meet. And even soccer, we'd be at the same tournaments and stuff like that. So making it social helps a lot with getting young people involved, getting them to stay there, and then they begin to develop their skill and their passion, and then hopefully have a supportive system that pushes them to keep going and to keep exploring what they find that they love.
Now, in the midst of this pandemic, how is it really kids in sports too? And how is it? This pandemic has been amazing. It's devastated us to a point that we've all been gaining lots of weight. But I say that personally. But how do we really get the children? And what do we during this pandemic? How can they use sports as an outlet, or what can they do during this pandemic to engage themselves into sports?
Danielle, do you want to kind of maybe talk about like Bossy or different organizations that you know of?
I think like everybody during this pandemic, people have had to pivot, right? I mean, Deanna can tell you stories of what it's like to try to teach physical education through a computer screen. It's a challenge. But I can say too, from a personal perspective, that movement, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be always organized sport, but movement is beneficial for all of us and especially important for kids. So finding ways to give them opportunities to move, even if it's just like running in place in your apartment, or going for a walk around the block, or gardening, or helping somebody clean the house. Looking for all of those avenues are critical to, I think, all of our physical health, probably our mental health. And I think it's a really, really tough time for kids. This pandemic affects us all, but I think we're going to look with time, and we're going to look back on our youth population and see how significant the challenge was. I believe that kids are resilient. I believe that kids are going to bounce back, but I think that this is going to be a time in our lives that we're going to look back upon and say, man, kids had to struggle through this, and we as adults need to do everything we possibly can to, as Deanna mentioned, provide avenues for exposure, to be that support, to be that safety net for them to be able to try to be able to get out and succeed in school and succeed in their health as well.
And Yvette, I think a lot of times too that like kids, I mean, it's not easy to ask for help sometimes, or to just go out there and extend yourself. But if you have mentors, a lot of times, like if I had a kid that came up and said, oh my God, I'm really struggling with this, I miss playing sports, like I'm going to brainstorm with that kid the possibilities, right? I'm going to get on Google and tell them to get on Google, and we're going to try to look some stuff up together. So they're not in it alone. And I would definitely suggest reach out to the people that care about you, the people who might be involved or connected in sport in some way. And everybody knows how much our youth is struggling right now. And usually people will take those extra few minutes to try to improve their life in some way by figuring out like how they can participate, or giving them some of like the suggestions that Danielle talked about. So reach out to people.
Now, there was a question that came in, and I wanted to ask. It was a question that said, now soccer has been sport that is not well diverse, have diverse folks in it. How does it feel to be breaking that mold, or to break that mold and be one of the first African-American soccer players? And what are some of the challenges that you had to go through? Danielle?
Well, that's right. Soccer in America is not diverse. It is mostly white, mostly suburban sport. But the irony is that soccer or football around the world is the most diverse sport in the world. But we've created this system, this pay-to-play system in America that really excludes a lot of people. And access is not afforded to everyone in our country equally. And so for me, I think I was one of few Black players my whole life, whether it was at the youth level, high school, collegiate, professional, or even the international level as well. And I guess I just look at it as I look at my role as a step in moving things forward. You look at it now, and there are more Black players on the women's national team than there have been before. And there are more resources for girls of color to be able to get access to soccer. Are we where we need to be yet? No, not even close. But I do think that there is progress, and I do think that we still have a long way to go to be where we want to be.
And that's why I said you broke the mold. And I want to thank you for breaking the mold for so many young players of African descent, because in this country, and for the audience out there, she did say it, soccer does not look like this around the world. It's only here in the United States it's really segregated as has been. But as Danielle said, she broke the mold for all of us. And I think that the Invisible Man, my co-host, wanted to say something.
I just wanted to say that first ask a question. Where does soccer originate? Any ideas?
I'm sure you can tell us.
No doubt. Go back about 5,000 years. It was called Su Shu, and it was played in the Han Dynasty in China. In Egypt, 2,500 years ago, the Japanese 1,000 years ago, and of course, ancient Greece. But now when we get to this country, in Jamestown, the Indians played a similar type of game. So, it's really something.
It is.
Tell us about Paraguay.
In Paraguay?
Paraguay, yeah. Tell us about Paraguay. How were you received?
Oh, so yeah. So one of my roles for in my post-playing career was volunteering and doing some work for the State Department. The State Department was using sport as a form of diplomacy, really, around the world, and to try to get women and girls in particular the opportunity to play sport. And so I have had the chance to travel to South Africa, to Jordan, to Paraguay, to Malaysia, to basically just work with women and girls and show them a little bit more about the game. And Paraguay is a fascinating country. It is a country of young people. Like, there is a significantly more, a larger amount of young people than old people. I don't remember exactly what the average age is in Paraguay, but their initiative was, hey, look, we have all these young people, like, let's have a positive influence on what they believe and what they think they can be, and expose them to folks from around the world in different cultures. And so we went to Paraguay. My friend and teammate, Lori Fair, and I had the chance to work with kids all over the country. And it was really fun. I love the fact that soccer has afforded me the opportunity to travel, not only around our country, but around the globe, and meet people that I never would have met, learn from people of different cultures, and see the differences, but also recognize that we are more the same than we are different. I can't speak the language of so many countries that I go to, but you know what? I roll out a ball and barriers just break down. We can speak the language of soccer, if you will, and that's part of why soccer is so fantastic and perhaps invisible man, why it popped up in so many different places around the world throughout history. It's a very simple game. You roll out a ball, you use your feet, and you try to kick it, into that net or in between those two posts. And it speaks to me that so many cultures around the world have embraced it throughout history, and why it's the most popular sport in the world to this day.
Well, then call it what it really is, football.
Football, I know.
Oh,
I
yes.
have a question real quick for you, sister, if I could. Deanna, as a person who is involved in sociology and you study behavior, we were talking about the pandemic and how you deal with kids. Tell us about the peer program that you are involved with, please.
I also teach in an electives program in my middle school, and it's called a peer advocacy program. And what we do is we work to develop social emotional skills, and we talk about our values, our beliefs, understanding kind of who we are, where we come from, understanding that we can be different, but still accept other people's differences, and create a space where ultimately we have students on campus who are mediating conflict among other students on campus. And so we teach nonverbal communication. We teach how to ask open and closed questions, do a lot of role playing, and just learn how to be kind of better people, better humans, so we can help people on campus through different educational services, counseling services, tutoring services, and mediation.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you both.
Thank you. So I wanted to get back to asking you guys both played a variety of sports. And what is the benefit of playing a variety of sports? Because, some folks just keep their young people focused on one sport. Is there a benefit or disadvantage for that, for playing one sport versus variety of sports?
I believe strongly in variety. And I think that nowadays we are seeing kids specialize earlier and earlier and at younger in ages. And I am not an advocate for that. I believe that we're seeing more and more overuse injuries. And I think when kids play a variety of sports, you're not having the same repetitive motions because they're doing different things. Playing volleyball or soccer or softball or running track or doing dance all provide athletes and kids the chance to use different muscles, to focus on different aspects of the sport. And I think there can be a lot of transferability. I know Steve Nash, who is now the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. He was a very, very famous NBA player and was an MVP in the NBA. He played soccer his whole life. And he talked about how important the movement that he learned in soccer was to his success as a professional NBA player. So I'm definitely an advocate of the variety from a physical standpoint, in addition to the fact that mentally you get a break from the same repetitive thing over and over again. Yes, you have those kids who just eat, breathe, and all they want to do is one sport. And if that's what they want to do, okay, that's fine. But what I am seeing is it's not often these days, or it's less often driven by the kid making that decision. And it's more often by a coach or a parent saying, you need to do this. If you want to get a scholarship, if you want to be successful in life, you've got to stick with this. And I don't think that's a good message to send. I actually think it's the opposite. I cannot tell you the times as a collegiate coach when I was working at Northwestern, how many girls I saw who were burned out by the time they got to college. And they thought they had to play because they played their whole life and this is what they were working to. And by the time they got to me, they were mentally exhausted, they were injury prone, and quite frankly, they didn't always want to be there. They wanted to go have fun in college and didn't want to play a collegiate sport. And I think in part, not entirely, but in part, that had to do with the fact that they played soccer their whole life, and that's all they did for the first 18 years of it.
Yes, I've seen parents drive their kids, and especially with football, our young men in football, how they drive them to play. And they're, football and basketball, they're going to be stars. Unfortunately, there's only 1% that really make it to the big league. And the injuries are severe. So have either one of you been injured during your time playing or running? And how did that hold you up if you had?
Yeah, I think if you're in sport long enough, everybody's going to experience some sort of injury. I think that's part of it. I ended my playing career because of an injury to my knee. And I had various injuries throughout the course of my career. So I think it's definitely tough, but it is a part of sport. And if you can learn from it, which I feel like I did, then you'll be stronger for it on the other end. But I do think that the reality is you have to understand, if you're in sport long enough, there's going to be bumps and bruises along the way. It's just, it's part of the game.
Now, what is the safest sport for a young person? Because for those parents who are so fragile about it, what is the safest sport for a young person to get involved in?
Checkers.
I mean, like, my first instinct goes to non-contact sports, but you have overuse injuries. You can have injuries. You have injuries in track. You have injuries in golf. You have injuries in tennis. So I think staying away from contact, the contact can provide, I guess, more opportunity for injury, but no sport is risk-free.
I agree.
Hannah, since you're a middle school teacher and a coach, you're a middle school coach, now tell us, and you also run a summer program. What difference do you notice is between boys and girls in your camps when it comes to sports?
I would probably say confidence. And I think that kind of goes back to exposure. If you picked up a volleyball and you hit it back and forth, or you've had experience doing that, when you come out to class, or you come to a summer program, or you are given an opportunity to try out for volleyball, you're more likely to give it a shot because it's something that you've had a little bit of exposure to. And so building confidence amongst girls, I think, is really important, but a lot of that is just them not necessarily having the experience and the exposure. And so that's probably the biggest difference that I see amongst girls and boys at an early age in sport.
And I would say, to add on to that, I think part of that reason for that confidence and that exposure is what we as adults are telling kids. Like, what do we tell girls versus what do we tell boys about their bodies and the opportunities to play sport? And I think about that a lot as coaches too. I think about that gosh, culturally as well. I mean, what do we tell young Black players versus young white players? I look at that in soccer all the time. Where do we put the Black kids? We put them on the wings. We put them at center back where physicality is maybe valued more. We don't put them in center midfield. We don't ask them to hone in on the technical side of their game, kind of like the story that we've heard of the white quarterback and the Black quarterback in football. And so to me, I think the messaging that we as adults have with young girls and young boys, with especially young girls of color, is so critical to whether or not they are going to have confidence, whether or not they are going to try again, whether or not they are going to have the opportunity to succeed in whatever sport they're trying. And so I think there's a lot of onus on us as adults when it comes to the messaging that we're sending to boys and girls and people of color with how they can be successful in sport.
In addition to what's out there, you look at the professional sports teams that we have out here and the access that girls have to just watch sport and see people that look like them, which is great for, people like Danielle, who's traveling around the globe to get more girls interested, things like I'm doing just within my community. And we need to see more. So we need for parents to take their kids to games, even if they're, at the college level, if that's what's local.
Or high school.
Take them and show them what girls are doing, how much fun they're having, how amazing they are, how good athletes they are. But they have to see more people to even have those dreams and to be able to know that is possible and that can be a reality. If they don't see it, and they only know it as a male sport or only know that men do it, that makes it hard. Makes it hard to do when you don't know it's possible.
That brings me to this question. Should there be a distinction in the games that girls play compared to boys? And before you answer that, in today's world, if a boy transitions into a girl, should he be allowed to play girls sports, or is there such a thing as girls sports anymore?
I think there is. I mean, I think the reality for us right now is things are very binary still. I mean, we still have girls sports and women's sports. We still have boys and men's sports. I don't know if that will change in the future. I don't know, as we learn more and discover more about gender fluidity and the non-binary population, maybe that will change. But I know that there have been fights at the highest level fighting against it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but to me, there are very significant human rights issues around this discussion. I think of the example of the track athlete, the 800 runner, Caster Semenya out of South Africa, and how the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and those who oversee track and field are forcing her to take shots to lower her testosterone. She was born this way, and they are saying the only way we're going to allow you to compete in your dream and to do what you're going to do is if you inject something into your body, then we'll let you play. And I have a real hard time with that. So I don't know what the future is going to hold. I think there will be a lot of challenges and conversations around this as we learn more. But the reality is we live in a very binary world when it comes to gender. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But I do think that the conversation is important. And as we learn more, we'll see how the cards fall.
Thank you.
Yeah, and those conversations have to keep happening because you look at like our rule books, you look at our records. And so it has to be a lot of conversations. A lot of people need to keep talking. We need to have allies. We need to have people that are speaking up, the people that are passionate about it, because that's the only way that things will change.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, I had a question that just came in and they said, knowing that there's hormonal differences between male and females, and there's the body composition and muscular physique is very different for a male to female. Do you think it's fair for them to play each other's sports, knowing that a man is much more stronger than a female?
I guess I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that question. And I don't know that I'm qualified to say what's fair or right or wrong in this circumstance. If you asked me this 10 years ago, I probably would have said it's not fair, but I'm still learning about this whole area. And so I don't know what the right answer is yet. And I think, to Deanna's point, collectively, if we continue to have discussions about it, then and we continue to study it, then I think maybe we'll have more answers. But right now, I feel like I just am continuing to have a bunch of questions and things I'm trying to learn and educate myself about. And then hopefully at some point I'll have more of an opinion. But I don't know what the right answer is, and I think a lot of people feel that way, actually, if I'm being honest.
Thank you. Now, Deanna, who you never mentioned your role models in sports. Who is your role model? Do you have a role model? And why is it important for young girls to see women in sport?
Okay, so I can't use my sister as my role model. Okay.
Oh, she's my role model. You can use her. You can use her. She's my role model, I'll tell you.
I think that, so I'm not a big reader. And anybody in my family who's watching this right now is like, she ain't never lied. But my dad made me read a book on Gail Devers when I was young. And I just remember her story really standing out. She was someone who battled with illness and injury and was actually diagnosed with Graves' disease. And she was that close to foot amputation. And she was the fastest woman in the world. And so to learn about her story and her struggle was very empowering. And I appreciated her story. And also her coach was Bob Kersey, who's wife to Jackie Joyner Kersey. And I just loved the idea of family, track and field and family, because that's so much of how I grew up, with competing and practicing with my sister, like I said, my family, all over. And so my dad, as my coach, my dad started coaching me basically since I started all the way up until I went to college. And so just kind of bringing family, the connection of family and track, that just connected with me at a very early age.
It's an 8-minute warning. Let me ask this real quick question. It takes determination. You have to be determined. You can't give up no matter how hard it seems. When you lose a match or miss a goal, you have to get right back up and try again. Please respond to that, both of you.
Let's start.
I'm singing the Aaliyah song in my head at the first.
Okay.
I mean, I agree. I like my cousin Yvette. Maybe I took after Dr. Butler because I had fallen over a hurdle or two in my day. Even trying to qualify for the U.S. Olympic trials, and was on pace to set the qualifying time, falling in over, I believe, like the 8th hurdle and having to find other mates to keep qualifying. But if you care, if you're passionate, if you want to get better, you will face adversity. You will fail at one point or another, if not several times. And that's how you learn, and that's how you get better, and that's how you get stronger, and that's how you learn to not make those mistakes. That's how you learn how to take care of yourself in better ways. That's the only way you can kind of keep going.
I would say, to add on to that, yes, you need determination, but you also need goals and a plan. And I can't tell you how many young people I've coached who are saying, I really want to go play in college, and I really want to play for the national team one day. And I say, okay, well, what are you doing? Like, what's your plan to get there? And they don't have one. And so to me, the concept of being resilient and having determination are all very, very important qualities, but you also have to figure out how you're going to set goals and how you're going to put a plan in place in order to achieve those goals. So it's not just about gutting it out or wanting it more, but it's about doing the preparation and setting yourself up to be successful. So when the opportunity does arrive, you're ready to meet the challenge when it comes.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Well, let me
Thank
jump
you.
to some of these last few questions because we want to talk about the salaries. There's this huge difference in salaries and endorsements between men and women's sports. How do we address that? And what are some of the things what way we can help address those issues?
There's not a simple answer in my mind. Really, the way it's going to change ultimately is sponsorship dollars and media dollars. I mean, the millions and billions of dollars that are involved with the decision makers about who gets to be on television, what the sponsorship and endorsement deals that happens at those elite levels. 40% of professional sports or 40% of all sports, I should say, is played by women, and it gets 4% of coverage in the media, on television and in print. And so the way that starts to change is that as consumers, we start to say, yeah, I'm going to show up and pay to go to a WNBA game. I'm going to watch it on television. I'm going to expose my kids to it because ultimately what's going to change, really make lasting change, and it's not going to happen in any short time, because men's sports has hundreds of years of a head start compared to women's sports and the opportunities we have, particularly at the collegiate and professional level. So as consumers, it is incumbent upon us to put our money where our mouth is, and if we don't have a lot of money, then to support by following the people that you want to support on Twitter and in social media, and exposing other people to women, and particularly women of color in sport, because money's going to follow where eyeballs are, and that's, as consumers, where we have a collective power.
Thank you. Now, really quickly, I want to ask, how do we get involved in the movements to sustain a social justice effort and demonstrations by organizations like the WNBA and what they've done, and athletes like Naomi Osaka and Megan Rapinoe? How do we, as individuals, use this platform to give a voice and promote empowerment around those, including our generation and the rising youth?
I think we have to make sure that we're keeping the conversation going. We are, like Danielle said, following people on social media. We are attending those games, those matches. We're watching on TV. We're reaching out to young people and finding people who are passionate and being curious, asking them, like, what do you want to do? How do you want to contribute? What are some things? I am shocked every day at some of the things that my students come up with that I wouldn't even have an idea about or could come up with on my own. And so it's keeping conversations going, keeping it alive, educating our kids, giving them spaces to be able to express themselves and work through their feelings, work through their thoughts, and giving them the freedom and the support and the nudge to try to see where they can fit in and how they can make change too.
Wonderful. Now, Danielle, tell us, how is it to cover professional sports? Now you played it, and how is it to cover it on TV? And what are some of the differences between the men and the women's games?
The most notable difference is that the men's game is faster, in that they can, strike a ball harder. And so I have to be much more cognizant of, quite frankly, when I need to shut up because the goal might be scored. So that's like the most obvious difference. But the thing about soccer is that, there's a lot of similarities in the men's and women's games. And I think that's why I'm fortunate to be able to cover both the men and women. And I do think it's incredibly important to give voice to the women's game and to be able to do that justice. But I also think it's important for women to have a voice in men's sports. The way we see the game, the way we think about things might be a little different, and that perspective is valued. I think diversity of thought is critical in every area, and sport included. So it's an honor. It's fun. I get those little butterflies just like I do when I was playing, when, we go live and that red light comes on. But I love the game of soccer, and I love that I get to participate in it, and television is just the means by which I get to do that right now.
Well, you're a natural. I'll tell you, I've watched you, and you're a natural at that. I want to put out one disclaimer that I didn't put out before to my audience. These are my little cousins, and they are both of them are my inspiration. I watched them grow, and I'm so proud of the two of you, immensely proud of the two of you, and I love you dearly, because they're telling the 1 minute warning. So I wanted to make sure I got that out.
Yeah,
I wanted to say at the end of the show, I am just so proud of the two of you. But one last thing I want to ask both of you. I want to thank you so much, first of all, for coming on and allowing us to honor those stars amongst us, which you are. But what is one piece of advice that you can give your younger self? Not the folks, younger self.
I would say just enjoy the journey and make sure you stop to smell the roses from time to time.
I would say to be curious and ask questions and learn more, listen to people's stories, be curious.
Well, I want to thank the both of you. And I had people were texting me, and I was trying to go all the questions, and so I hope I got everyone's questions as they were texting me. But I want to thank you both so much. I'm so proud of you. The whole Slayton family is proud of you, and so I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. And please, you can go and watch the show and share it as well, and watch it again and share with your friends. It's on YouTube. It's on Facebook. It's also on Roku, and it's on Afrique Today. So you can make sure you can share and watch us out, even if you missed the show. The majority of it, you can share it out and share. And please, we ask you to share it so everyone can see these young, beautiful women who are stars amongst us, and has given us their time tonight to talk to you and come on the voice of American Africans United. So thank you so much. And I think we have our guest for next week that we're going to be advertising today. Invisible Man, right. Could you give us a follow-up for what we're going to see next week?
Women Employed is an organization that is in Chicago that help women find employment, maintain employment. And I believe there's also going to be an entrepreneur, you said. So we should have two
Correct.
people, hopefully.
Actually, she was with the Fortune 500 company. And so we'll be able to see, how do women in business actually handle themselves and get to that position and stay in those positions, and the fights they have to go through on a daily basis. So without further ado, I want to thank you again on behalf of American Africans United, myself, Yvette Butler, your host, and my co-host,
The Invisible Man.
And we hope to see you next week. Thank you so much. Also, thank Afrique Today for allowing us this opportunity to every week come and share our voices with you. Thank you.